All righty, here we are. Thank you everybody for joining Tea with Tiffany. I am your naturopathic doctor host, and this is my show where I get to do whatever I want, and I enjoy calling my colleagues, my naturopathic friends, old friends from college, and even a couple famous people, and we just talk about life and health and hacks and tricks that they are doing in their lives, especially right now. We're focused on the quarantine times, and I'm excited that I have Dr. Chris Nagy. He is a physician in Asheville, and he's actually an old colleague of mine. We used to work together way back in the day. I'd say it's almost been 8 or 10 years, and I'm excited just to reconnect with him and pick his brain about all the different things that he's doing in his world right now during this pandemic time. So hi, Dr. Nagy, how are you?
Hey, Tiffany, I'm great. How are you doing?
I am awesome. You know, while I was giving that little introduction, it just reminded me of our podcast days.
Yes.
Isn't that fun? We have so many. So I know you're up in Asheville. You're in North Carolina. I'm here in South Carolina. How's it going up there?
It's good. It's good. You know, our numbers here are fairly stable, not terrible. Certainly nothing compared to New York and some of the big hot spots. So there's probably some reasons for that, which we can get into, but doing fine up here.
Yeah, well, let's get right into it. What are the reasons you think?
Well, I think the population density in Asheville, North Carolina is far different than it is in New York City. The pollution is much lower than it is in New York City. We do have people coming in and out for international travel, but not even near what they have in New York City. And basically, we're not living on top of each other like I mentioned, the population density in New York. So there's a lot of reasons that I think probably we're doing better here. Also, not to mention the fact that it's springtime. As you know, viral syndromes typically wane once the weather turns nicer. That's kind of the classic pattern. They used to put people out in the sun in the pandemic in 1918, and I kind of ascribe to doing the same. You know, unfortunately, we're in this lockdown shelter-in-place situation. Stay inside, don't go outside. The first thing you should be doing is going outside, getting some sun, AKA vitamin D, fresh air, and some activity. So
Yay,
I think
I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Abso-freaking-lutely. You know, I understand the reasoning behind sheltering in place and staying inside, but the ramifications of doing that exactly are probably more harmful than the virus itself, in my opinion.
I kind of think so too. And also looking at so many people that are home alone and the isolation and the mental health, and you know, when I know we want to keep them safe, it's all about safety, but I think we're going to have a whole other epidemic on our hands here if this goes on for too much longer.
Oh, certainly. I read a recent article that suicide hotline calls have gone up times 10, not to mention domestic violence and, you know, there's
child abuse. I read about that.
Yeah, there's many unintended consequences of the forced sheltering in place. Again, I understand the reasoning and the rationale, but there's unintended consequences which are coming to light and will continue to come to light as this goes on.
Yeah. So what are you doing, you know, to keep your immune system strong? Are you eating different things? I know you're a big bulletproof coffee guy in the morning.
Sure.
Maybe we talk about your coffee, and then also you're a smoothie guy. You know, we'd love to hear. I like to get right to it. Tea with Tiffany. We just get right to the tips, right to the hacks. What are you doing, and what can you recommend to other people to keep their immune system strong?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. And I typically walk the line pretty well, even prior to this pandemic situation. I'm not perfect, as most people are not, but I'm probably 80-20, 90-10 as far as eating healthy and maintaining my health. But some of the things that I'm doing that I've upped my game a little bit, maybe as far as the immune support front. And I look at this in two ways. You know, we could attack this by treating the virus, of which there's really no effective treatment for viral problems as there is for bacterial. Or you can attack this by supporting the host. And so the key to doing well, I think, in this pandemic is to support the host. And so some of the things I'm doing, and of course, vitamin D, much better from sun exposure than from a supplement, but even so, not everybody's walking around naked for a half an hour a day in the bright sunlight.
Yeah.
So I get outside as much as I can, whether it be exercise, yard work, take my shirt off to get as much sun as I possibly can during that time. But I also supplement with vitamin D, but not only vitamin D, also vitamin A, which is powerfully antiviral. And truth be told, I've actually resorted to eating Icelandic cod livers.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so some people take cod liver oil, which is rich in vitamin A and vitamin D, and I came across the availability of actual cod livers, and I thought, oh, what the heck, I'll try that, because I eat sardines as a matter of routine.
Yeah, where
But,
do you get the cod livers?
well, I got them off of Amazon.
Okay.
Get them off of Amazon, Icelandic cod livers. The sardines taste just like tuna, but the cod livers have a different texture. They're a little bit mushier. I can't say I like them as much as I like the sardines.
Sardines, yeah.
But they're in cod liver oil, so I eat the cod livers, and then I swallow the oil. Rich source of vitamin A and D.
Wow. Does it come in a can?
Yeah, it comes in a little tin, just like a can of sardines does. You can look it up on Amazon. Icelandic cod livers.
Okay.
But it's probably not something I'll be eating on the regular, like I do sardines 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
But, but talk about a rich source of vitamin A and D. Cod liver oil.
I've always recommended cod liver oil to patients, and I'm telling them to increase their amount that they put in their smoothie, take an extra dose at night,
yes,
your teaspoon or so. You don't need that much, but it is loaded with more vitamin A, vitamin D, but I have never eaten straight out of a can cod livers. So
yeah, if I was right next to you, I'd share some with you. They're not terrible. I mean, they taste like tuna too, but the texture is just not as firm as sardines, but at the same time, not bad. And vitamin A and vitamin D, strongly antiviral. You know, one of the primary treatments for measles, non-medical treatment, is pounding the vitamin A.
Yeah, high dose.
And for any viral syndrome. Mm-hmm. So I've upped my vitamin A, vitamin D hopefully by sun exposure, because there's other benefits from the broad spectrum light. Vitamin C, of course. I don't routinely take vitamin C because I eat a lot of citrus fruits, but I have started supplementing with vitamin C twice a day. And zinc.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, zinc has so many helpful benefits. But even so, hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine, which they're talking about being helpful to treat COVID-19, actually one of the mechanisms of action is it increases the availability of zinc to the cells. But, go one step further and take the zinc too to make sure you have the proper supply.
Yeah, what form of zinc are you taking?
I take, it's not zinc oxide. I stay away from all the oxides. They're not, I don't remember if it's zinc gluconate or what it's a chelated form of zinc. So it's more absorbable, but yeah, zinc oxide, stay away from, runs right through you. You don't get the benefit of it. Of course, you'd want to eat your zinc, but not everybody's going to eat oysters every day.
We are here in Charleston. We can.
Yeah. True. Of course, I wear a copper bracelet too, because there's if you're supplementing with extra zinc, you got to have a little copper to offset 10-to-1 ratio of the effects of copper and zinc. I eat as much fermented foods as I can. I'm a big fan of probiotics, but I think it's even better to eat your probiotics rather than take a pill. I think there's more benefits to that, but probiotics are helpful. I
making kombucha?
I don't make my own kombucha anymore. And I don't make my own sauerkraut anymore, which I used to.
I remember that. You sent me a SCOBY. Remember you put it in the mail?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
But I'm still drinking kombucha. I'm still eating sauerkraut. I have once or twice a day, I'll have some spirulina and chlorella.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. All of which are helpful things. So, there's all those little supplement components of helping to try to stimulate your immune system, but there's also the lifestyle measures. Like I mentioned, exercise increases T cells or white blood cells, which help with your immune system, any type of activity. And in these times of sheltering in place, exercise is good for your mental health. One of the most effective treatments for mental health issues is activity and exercise.
Absolutely.
So I've kind of been shut out from the Y now because the Y is closed down. So I've transitioned to bicycling and push-ups and calisthenics and kind of lifting dumbbells at home instead. So
awesome.
Another important thing for your immune system is sleep, which is always valuable, but even more so for your immune system.
What if people are having issues sleeping and they can't get to sleep, or they're not staying asleep? Do you have any tricks or hacks like that they can do before they get to bed, or any different herbal teas, or what are your go-tos and recommendations for helping people support better sleep?
Well, good. Turn the computer off, or else wear blue blocker glasses.
Yeah.
Or turn the Kindle off. If you're going to read before bed, read a real book, not a Kindle, or anything that has blue light that hits your retina. That suppresses melatonin production. Oh, and melatonin is also antiviral and has been found to be effective to battle the coronavirus. So, at least an hour or two before you go to bed, turn off any type of technology that has blue light, or download an app that blocks the blue light on your computer. And if you don't do that, you can wear the UV blocking sunglasses. You might feel like you look a little funny, but blue light actually adversely affects your ability to fall asleep. And the double benefit of turning off the technology is not only blocking the blue light, but also not creating the anxiety created by all that's on social media, touting all the risks and all the problems that we're going to face, which in my opinion, probably we will not. But
yeah. So what do you mean by that? What specifically on social media what are you talking
fear
about? Oh,
just the fear, stoking of the fear. And COVID-19 is a real thing. There's no question about it. There are people dying as a result of it, but the fear that's been implanted in the population of this country and the world, I think, is a little overblown for a disease. It's probably going to end up having a mortality rate of less than 1%.
You think?
We've had the same thing just about every year with the flu, and I'm not saying COVID-19 is the flu, but the difference being we didn't know about every death that occurs as a result of the flu.
Yeah.
Like we're learning of every death that's occurring as a result of coronavirus. And we're not learning about every death that is occurring as a result of the COVID-19, but we sure are learning about the deaths that occur in young people with COVID-19.
I know, we hear all the horrible stuff.
Oh, sure. The media is happy to share the deaths of, a very healthy person. Health is a relative term in the United States these days. And even though someone may look healthy and they may not be obese, which is a big risk factor for doing poorly with COVID-19, that doesn't necessarily mean someone's healthy either, as you know. Now they use the term TOFI, T-O-F-I, thin on the outside and fat on the inside. Metabolic health is critically important to help fight COVID-19, and most of America is not metabolically healthy, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I did like a Facebook Live. I think this was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and this first started, we first started getting the news, and people were worried about schools closing and all of this stuff. And I remember saying, like, the problem is here in America, like, we already have epidemic proportions of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and obesity. And that's what they're already saying from China and all these other countries. Those are the people that are getting hit hard. So, I mean, our country is diabetic and has heart disease and is overweight. I mean, what would you say the percentage of population have that? I have no idea off the top of my head. But
well,
more than 50%.
Yeah, over 60% of us are overweight. And about a third obese. So, and those are the people that notoriously are doing poorly or dying. Yeah. And in some ways you want to share that, but then you get called a fat shamer for doing so.
I know. We don't mean that at all on this.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, if you look at the hard statistics, the more excess weight you're carrying, the higher risk you are from contracting up to dying as a result of this.
Yeah.
And the one thing too, I don't know if you've seen it, but the past 2-3 days, the big thing has been how this is affecting the African-American community.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, and not one person, not one, Dr. Fauci or anybody, they're talking about health. What about vitamin D deficiency?
Yeah.
That's probably one of the major reasons why it's affecting the African-American community more frequently or more severely than it is the white community.
Mm-hmm.
There's rampant vitamin D deficiency. Vitamin D is an antiviral vitamin, but I have not heard one health official say, oh, I wonder if it could be because of the vitamin D deficiency that's rampant in the African American community. The darker your skin, the more sun exposure you have to make vitamin D.
Yeah.
I've not heard that once, but as soon as they started talking about, the virus being racist or the increased incidence or worsening prognosis with African Americans, the first thing I thought was, yeah, it's probably because of vitamin D deficiency, or big component is probably that particular factor.
Yeah.
But again, our thought leaders and our experts, not once have I heard that mentioned.
Oh man, you haven't heard anything about any nutrition or diet or any way to prevent. It's all fear. We need a vaccine.
I was just going to say, yeah, have you heard any recommendations for a vaccine that's going to come save us all? And there's different philosophies as to how this should go. When I first found out some of the people I work with had COVID, I wanted to go hug them, get the virus myself and move on to help support herd immunity.
I thought that the first couple of weeks too. I was like, come on, let's do this. Bring it on. Let's get it over with.
And that sounds cocky. That sounds overconfident. But in reality, most viral syndromes go away once herd immunity is obtained. And herd immunity is obtained by actually facing the disease, going through it, and then once you've developed herd immunity, the disease just kind of disappears. So, I'm not trying to be overly cocky or overly confident, but what we're doing now, and I've read all these posts about everybody needs to listen, they need to shelter in place so this goes away. But the fact of the matter is, as long as we shelter in place and hide from it, the longer it propagates, the length of time we're going to be dealing with this. This recurrence rate.
As soon as everybody goes back out,
yeah,
what's going to happen?
Well, I heard a good analogy the other day. It's like a boxer in a ring. So one of the boxers is COVID, the other boxer is you. And you can run and run and run from COVID as long as you want, but eventually you're going to get tired out and COVID's going to come up and punch you in the face. So the longer we try to shelter everybody and prevent it from spreading, the longer we're going to have to deal with the ramifications of such.
Yeah.
And so we're going to just talk about, it could come back in the fall. Well, it may never leave us because we're not exposing ourselves and developing the immunity. And immunity, herd immunity specifically, doesn't come via vaccination. It comes via exposure, development of natural immunity, and therein is how you develop herd immunity. Yeah. I don't know that there's any studies ever showing that vaccinating everybody creates herd immunity. So,
well, have you heard, and I just talked to another colleague earlier this week, and she was talking about in Sweden, like what they're doing in Sweden, and they haven't shut down the whole economy. They haven't shut down, but they've really focused on isolating the elderly and isolating the immune compromised. But business is still running, and they're being overly cautious, but it's not as such an extreme as we are doing. And so I just wonder, like, why didn't they do that? Do you know, like, why we couldn't have just tried to protect our elderly and over 65 and immune compromised and really sheltered them, and like why we had to shut down the whole? I mean, this is just, it's so extreme, and the way it's affecting so many people's lives. And it's very, I just don't know. It's so extreme for this virus, where you and I, we're kind of we know, as a naturopathic doctor, you as a physician, like, we understand viruses. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm very concerned. We want to flatten the curve.
Right.
The whole shut down a whole country, like, I cannot make sense of that in my mind. And like, I would just love to hear your thoughts on that, because the way that Sweden's doing it makes sense to me. That like is very, that makes sense. This whole, like, crash the economy, go into a recession, everybody hide. Like, I just, I still, as a naturopathic physician, cannot wrap my head around it.
Right. Well, no, I agree. And of course, in America, we go to extremes, and then we realize, we overshot, and then we go back. And my fear is that, these decisions that are being made by politicians, what politician's going to feel comfortable drawing back on these extremes?
Yeah.
Oh, somebody might die well, people are going to die anyways. And that sounds heartless. And, it's a new thing to shelter shame people. Oh, you need to do it to protect all the old and the infirm and the sick. Yeah, I get it, but nobody lives forever. And I don't mean to diminish in any way those who have died or suffered as a result of this virus.
Absolutely not.
But at the same time, it's almost like you can't speak up because you're going to be shamed into, how could you say something like that? Well, people die of pneumonia, 40 to 60,000 a year. And, we weren't talking about that in the past. So I think our medical team, at least at the federal level, is being led by people that are a little out of touch at this point. Dr. Fauci's 79 years old. He's the media's go-to boy now, and everybody loves him. But if you dig into where he came from, what his thoughts are, as you said earlier, they have offered nothing about supporting or improving your health. And actually, he's fighting with the president about the hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine, which has been around since the 50s.
Yeah, I mean, that's just Plaquenil, right?
It's Plaquenil, yes,
yeah.
It's Plaquenil. People have been using it for
autoimmune. These poor autoimmune people can't even get it now.
Right. So it's ridiculous. I mean, I think there's a lot of political opportunism in this discussion on the COVID-19 now too. And, anything, I'm not going to say Trump is perfect because he's not, but anything he says, he can't win one way or the other.
No.
He allows it to the state's governors to determine how they want to run their state. And all of a sudden everyone's mad because he's not micromanaging the country. Yet if he micromanages the country, he's a fascist. This will all be determined in hindsight. It's easy to armchair quarterback, but I think our medical leaders are not up to date. And maybe they're dispensing modern medical care, which is basically treat the symptoms. But really, you need to nourish the system to be successful and to do well with this. And so there's progressive murmurs of people saying, I don't trust Dr. Fauci. He's got too many ties with Bill Gates and previous organizations. He said in 2017 that Trump's going to face a viral pandemic. Well, if he knew that in 2017, why weren't we ready to go when it finally arrived 3 years later?
Yeah.
So we do things to the extreme. My only fear is that, and eventually when we reopen the economy, there's going to be some deaths probably, but you can't make the cure worse than the disease itself. And for a disease that's going to have a death rate of probably less than 1%, what are we doing? So I have some grave concerns the longer this goes on.
So are you working right now?
Well, I'm working part-time basically. I mean,
okay.
Basically I'm going into work, basically canceling all our patients. We've canceled surgeries. I haven't done surgeries since March 16th. And,
wow.
We're just waiting for the epidemic and waiting. It's kind of uncomfortable. We're all sitting around. We've shut our hospital down essentially.
Oh, man.
And, we've had, I think, a total of 2 COVID-19 patients since all this started too. And I hope it stays that way. I don't think we're going to face anything near what they faced in New York City, like for some of the reasons I mentioned before. But it's tough. I mean, it's a tough situation because, and you're the same. Motivated working person. When you're not working, you feel like you're not contributing, and I'm just happy that I'm still able to work. I feel
absolutely. Well, so they laid off here in my hometown. I mean, 900 workers from MUSC were laid off the other day. And then there was another couple hundred from another medical, another hospital locally. Yeah. And it blows my mind. Like every day you just get this devastating news of, these people are getting laid off, these doctors, and I know, I get it, the surgeries aren't essential, but you just think of all the families and all the doctors that have kids and all those administrative people that have been working in that system for years. And
Yes.
you know, these people, your workers, your coworkers, especially nurses and doctors, they're family. Like, you know, they're tight on their wards, and they're tight. It's just, I don't know, there's a traumatic, I believe, experience too happening on another level with people getting laid off and let go, and the sense of
Right.
loss and trauma. And but I just don't understand. I mean, most hospitals are mainly government funded already, so
Right.
why are they having to lay people off? Like, that's not making sense to me either. Like, I don't know why stuff doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, am I missing something here? Like, I want to stay in the lane, but I keep
Right.
going over here, and I need you to bring me back here.
Well, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving
Oh,
parts, a lot of
God.
unintended consequences. You know, the old saying, you can't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to some of our leaders too. They want to do the right thing, but the other thing I think is you can't base the national guidelines on what's happening in New York City, because nationally we're not New York City.
Yeah.
You can probably use some of the guidelines for what they're using in New York City for the bigger cities, but for these areas that have such a high population density,
Mm-hmm.
we're probably going to be okay. Yes, some people are going to die, and some people are going to die prematurely, but to apply, you know, you always want to consider the worst case scenario, but I guarantee you the worst case scenario, what's happening in New York City, is not going to happen in Asheville, North Carolina, and many of these other towns and cities. So what's the right balance of shutting down the economy versus sheltering in place?
So what is the reasoning behind them firing and letting go of over 900 medical staff, employees? And
because their census is probably 40 or 50% of what it usually is, because they've cleared everything out to make availability for all these coronavirus patients, but they're not coming. There was an Army hospital set up in Seattle and was taken down 9 days later because they had 0 patients. 250 bed medical hospital. I just read this recently in Seattle. The Army set up a 250 bed hospital. They admitted 0 patients. Even the ships that were sent to New York, they were just supposed to be meant for overflow, so the hospitals were available for corona victims. There haven't been any. It hasn't materialized. And you've probably seen some of the videos, the self-made videos of people going around to the hospitals. It doesn't look like anything's going on here.
Nobody's there.
Yeah. So, and that's not saying that things aren't going on, because they are. You know, you've read the stories.
Oh yeah.
But the reason they've laid off all the medical workers is because if we're not taking care of COVID, there's nothing else coming in, basically, it seems. No elective surgeries. Hospitals are big machines. And if they don't have throughput, patients coming in for other things. And so there's consequences there too, which obviously 900 people, and that's not just MUSC, that's all over the country.
I know. I mean, it just blows my mind. I feel like our brains don't even have the capacity to really wrap our head around what's really going on at a global level. Like, we can't even fathom, like we can't even, our brains can't even go there.
Right. I mean, you know, I approach life basically as it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
We're going to get through this. At the end of the day, things that you thought were bothersome or problematic or horrible are going to mean very little, you know? And so I think most of us, to benefit our mental health, have to just continue to push forward. It's going to be okay. It's a rocky time, but if you continue to dwell on all the negative things that are occurring, you'll end up broken.
Yeah.
So
well, I think I was talking to a friend earlier this morning. They did this Easter parade for my child's in daycare, and you know, kids haven't been in daycare for a month, and they missed their friends. So the teachers all said, we're going to do an Easter parade. All the families stay in your car. You just drive around. And, you know, all the teachers were distanced, and some of them had bunny ears, and they had decorated the parking lot with just art. And Easter eggs and streamers, and the kids, I mean, my kids were just like overjoyed with, like, we were going
Sure.
on this Easter parade and staying in our car, and they got to see some of their teachers. And I know, but here me, like little old mom, and business owner, and now homeschool, like I pulled in that parking lot
Uh-huh.
and lost it. Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I have not cried. I'm like, we'll get through this. We're strong. We're gonna, like, I'm like all in, we just stay strong, keep the
Uh-huh.
family going, keep the business going. Like, we're just gonna, roll with the punches. And I
Right.
don't know what hit me, but driving into that parking lot and just seeing all these kids hanging out of the cars and seeing all the faces, and what I think what it was is, like, these teachers went over and beyond to, like,
Yes.
really just put smiles on these kids' faces, and, like, just this wave of emotion came over me. I mean, I could cry right
Uh-huh.
now thinking about it. It just started coming down, and I was like, look at what is happening. Like, it's crazy. And I guess my question, or what I was going to tell you, is, trauma, and I'm no trauma specialist at all.
Sure, sure, sure.
But trauma is so, when you go through a traumatic situation, it's hard to really go through it at one time. Like, the event happens, and you only can deal with different pieces of it as,
Right.
as the days go on, because you can only do so much. So I think, it really starts to hit you later, like, when you start learning about that. And I'm like, oh man, here it is a month later. I think it just, like, really hit me what we've all been going through. And what are your thoughts on that, I guess? And how do you feel like a lot of this pandemic and everything our society's been going through, how it's going to change us here in the next couple months and in the future, years to come?
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you're talking about some of those challenges, in my opinion, you have to go through those challenges to come out stronger on the other end.
Yeah.
If life was all sunshine and rainbows, that wouldn't be beneficial for us over the long term. So yes, we have some challenges ahead of us, but going through those challenges is what allows you to kind of flex your muscles and get stronger to become more resilient. I mean, it's about becoming resilient and resilience itself. And that's what we have to do. But that's difficult. I mean, because it's a lot of uncertainty. But, this is obviously something that's going to be more challenging to most of us. But without those kind of challenges and having to think our way and work our way through this, I think we're going to be better off for it. But gosh, it's painful going through it. And another thing too, a lot of people, self-care. One of the best things you can do, though, instead of focusing on your individual self-care, is how can you help others? You'll probably find, yeah, great. I mean, focus on yourself and your health and things you can do to get through this. But if you can reach out in some way and help another or another individual get through it, there's benefits to you to doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a form of self-care, and probably more powerful than many of the things you do for yourself. Reach out and help somebody else.
So how do you recommend people help? Because I think people are scared to be around other people and, like, do things. Like, I'm helping my neighbor get groceries, but that's because she's right next door, and I always call her the night before I know I'm going to go to the store if I'm going to order something. And, she's got some other people helping her, but I know a lot of people help deliver some food. Like, what are other ways to reach out and help people when you're scared? If you come in contact with people, you're going to get the virus.
Yes. Well, and that's right. I mean, compassion works best locally. You can always send money to a relief organization or a food organization, but it's not the same as actually interacting with another person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, compassion does work best locally, but yes, there's such a fear of interacting with our neighbors. And you can see that even on a walk.
Oh man, everywhere.
Yes. You walk by, someone's walking 6 feet away. It's almost like it's unsafe to say hi. It's totally safe to say hi. Greet people.
Yeah.
I mean, people want to belong, but yes, it is kind of sad, questioning, well, I don't know if we should ever handshake again. Come on. You're kidding me.
I know.
So yes, I mean, it makes us, a lot of the things that we're being told to do make us second guess the things that make us a human, the connections. So Me personally, I mean, I don't look at COVID-19 or the coronavirus like I would consider something like AIDS. You know, the
Yeah.
coronavirus is the common cold. COVID-19 is a novel version of it. But with personally, I'm not afraid of COVID-19. You know, if I get stuck in surgery with someone who has AIDS, yeah, who has HIV, that's concerning to me, or hepatitis B. If I got stuck with a needle on someone that had COVID-19, I wouldn't think twice about it.
Yeah.
But you know, the average layperson, all they know is this is a boogie oogie man virus, COVID-19. They may not distinguish that HIV from COVID-19. It's a viral syndrome that's killing people. I don't look at it in that light at all. I look at it as basically a coronavirus, which is the common cold, maybe multiplied and a little bit worse than the average coronavirus. So, but yes, the social distancing stuff, I get it, but it's also detrimental to human behavior and human well-being. Another unintended side effect, basically.
It's been a roller coaster of a ride getting used to all this. I just hope it doesn't last too much longer.
Do you have a viral or an immune regimen you're recommending to your clients in general? Just kind of a nuts and bolts type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I get everybody on, they are all on a specific multivitamin that has a lot of vitamin C and zinc and selenium, I think is really important.
It is.
And, you know, getting all your B vitamins just for overall energy. So doing that, they all make their smoothies. And then I'm telling most of them, you know, avoid dairy as much as possible, just because that can overall make your immune system. Oh, the multivitamin also has vitamin A in it.
Yeah.
It's got vitamin D. It's got 4,000 IUs of vitamin D. I get people doing more if they need it.
Most do.
Yeah, drops and other capsules that they can take. But for the most part, it's like definitely stay on your multivitamin, eat well, eat it as clean as you can, make your smoothies. And then, of course, I have some extra immune herbs that I've been recommending to some people, but the only problem is you can't really get them anymore. They're all out of stock.
Yes.
Not only are people hoarding toilet paper, you see that in the store on our end, like all of our suppliers for all the different kinds of nutritional supplements and different herbal companies that I use. I mean, everybody's on back order. So I like to use extra zinc. I like to use extra D. I like to use different herbs. I love elderberry, astragalus, echinacea, a lot of mushrooms I'm getting people to use and to cook with just to help strengthen their immune system. And, you know, and then fresh air. I tell everybody, get outside a minimum of an hour a day. You should be outside an hour a day. Fresh air and sunlight is your absolute 100% best friend right now. That is who you should be socializing with.
No, viruses die in sunlight, warmth, and fresh air.
Yeah, well, and you know, I have my infrared saunas, so that's another
absolutely. Heat. I mean, that's what the body does naturally to rid itself of viral infections. It generates a fever. I throw a bunch of ginger into my smoothies too.
There you go.
You asked earlier about the coffee. I forgot. I never got around to that. I mean, I put turmeric in my coffee.
Just fresh turmeric?
No, powder? Not fresh, because it's in coffee, so I use the powder. Okay. But turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom. I put all of those spices actually in my coffee, and I put about 5 drops of 2% Lugol solution, iodine, in my coffee.
Oh, too. You do? So the heat doesn't denature it or anything?
Not iodine. I mean, iodine's a mineral. Yeah. So the heat itself doesn't harm. Actually, I put 2 raw egg yolks in my coffee too. And then people are like, well, you'll get salmonella. Well, actually, the coffee is hot. Eggs are a great emulsifier. They hold all those. Oh my
God, that sounds so gross.
No, I know it does. But egg yolks hold everything in solution. I put a heaping teaspoon of cacao powder, which is rich in flavonols, magnesium. So it makes it kind of like a cafe mocha, because I also put 4 or 5 drops of peppermint essential oil in my coffee. So
what's
all that stuff
peppermint for?
Well, because it makes it like it's good for the taste, you know, with putting turmeric in there.
Doesn't taste too good.
it's not real palatable. But the peppermint oil, well, peppermint, as you know, is good for digestive health. And
That's why I was wondering if you do it to kind of like help decrease all the gas from the egg and everything.
I like the taste. It's like a cafe mocha.
Yeah.
With the cacao powder, a couple drops of peppermint essential oil. But the eggs are, eggs are rich in choline. Eggs have everything necessary to create a life. I don't throw I don't throw the white in there, just the egg yolk. And that keeps everything in solutions, good source of choline. I know it sounds terrible, but there's a delicacy, Vietnamese egg coffee.
Oh, yeah.
The trick to it is the egg. And so even though that sounds horrible, you just take a little egg yolk, use a little frother, mix it up, and you never know.
Maybe we can do a video next week, and we'll get you to show us how to make your Nagy egg coffee.
Yeah, a lot of people laugh. Like,
I've never eaten a raw egg and coffee. I have done it in a smoothie before.
Yeah, but I could serve you a raw egg and coffee, and you'd never know it was a raw egg and coffee. It's not like you can taste it.
Okay.
I mean,
so do you still do the MCT oil and the Kerrygold butter and do like the bulletproof thing, or you're kind of?
No, I do. I put a little teaspoon of coconut ghee, so a mixture of coconut oil and ghee. Awesome. I used to get Kerrygold butter, but now I just buy ghee, coconut oil, mix them together, heat them up, and put a teaspoon of that in there too. Good healthy fats, basically.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's people laugh. That's a production. That's not a cup of coffee. Like,
it is work. I hear that from people like, oh, smoothies, there's too much work. They take, it takes 5 minutes. Oh my gosh. And you actually have to wipe out a blender. It's the end of the world. But the benefits of it outweigh the 5 minutes of there's a fast way to make a smoothie, and there's a very long way to do it if you're really disorganized and stuff's all over the kitchen. And, you got to have everything set up. I tell people, have your smoothie station. Like, everything's right there within grabbing distance. And you're just like, bam, 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 blend. You're cleaning up while it's blending, and then you pour it, and you just fill the thing with water. It's my 3-minute smoothie. I tell my patients, if it takes you more than 3 minutes to make a smoothie, you're doing something wrong.
Right. It's
not hard, and you just gotta. Most people don't get organized enough with their setup to be
just productive. Developing a habit. What you're saying when you're saying, oh, it's too much. You're basically saying, I'm not worth it, really. I'll just go to McDonald's and get something. Okay, all right. Then why are you seeing me in the first place?
Yeah,
that's a little rude, but you can't say it like that. But
that's what I love about you. You're right to the. Not rude, but you're just real, and it's not, we're not sugarcoating anything. It's not. I mean, that's why I loved when we used to work together back in the day. It's just real advice.
I've gotten a lot of flack on my Facebook page.
Oh, I've seen it.
I'm not espousing the party line that everybody needs to social distance. I've posted some stuff that may be considered controversial, but only controversial, I think, to the people who either have a political agenda or aren't following the science in the way that it should be followed. So, I saw some lady, can you believe what Dr. Nagy is posting? Do a little reading, dig a little deeper.
I know. Well, see, that's the thing. I don't think people really dig into the research, and they just really are believing everything that's fed to them through, these are certain news media outlets that feed us certain information that they want us to hear. I mean, you have to first get past that. Like, this is getting fed to you, like, for a specific purpose. And
trust but verify.
Some of them you can't. Most of them you just can't even really trust now. Like, you really have to find better sources. I don't even watch the news anymore. I have my people that I like to follow, like, on YouTube channels, because they're the people that I trust with the right information. So I would just recommend people try to find some of those people where they're really getting fed accurate information. Like, it's kind of scary when you watch the news and you're like, oh my God, like, if people are really believing all this, like, we're screwed.
Well, my objection is, for the things I post that have, I think, good information, instead of people arguing the information, they attack me on the source of where that news came from. Mm-hmm. Which to me means if you can't attack the information that's in the article, the easy thing to do is to attack the source from where it came. Mm-hmm. Why don't you argue the points that this person's trying to make rather than say, oh my gosh, this article came from Breitbart. or this article came from CNN. Who cares where it came from? Don't make your argument, don't attack the source, actually attack the message. I'm happy to entertain any discussion of the message, but if you start off by telling me, well, this isn't a good, reliable source. Well, what source in the media today is honest and reliable? Pretty much none of them. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. But most people don't realize that. And that's kind of, they really are trusting that's
Yes.
their funnel. And,
Right.
I don't know how to convince them otherwise. They have to do their own research, and so that's where you just have to step back and you have to let them go on their journey, and that's going to be their journey. But our journey is different, and we invite people in and we want to educate them to learn other things and to step outside the box and really teach them things they can do to build their immune system and how to, help their mental health. They're not going to hear on the news to go outside and get vitamin D between 12 or 11 and 2, because that's when the actual angle of the sun is hitting your melanocytes and it's actually causing a cellular reaction, and that's going to help boost your immune system to fight this off. That's not the news that we're fed. So if you're out there, get outside during 11 to 2. That's the range to increase the vitamin D levels. So it's crazy. We only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. And that's why I just love having these conversations. God, Tea with Tiffany is like my new favorite time of the day. Calling people and just chatting, and I'm always learning stuff. And to me, honestly, I started this is like kind of therapy for me. Like, I don't have a therapist. I've never had, and it's like, we just get to talk, and I get to connect with people that are in my world, and you understand like a little bit about nutrition, a little bit about the immune system, a little bit about, global events. And it's just, it's nice to reconnect and talk and just hear different views.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I always use the quote. There's a quote, one of the Stoics, Epictetus. One of his quotes I always remember is, it's impossible to teach a man something he thinks he already knows.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's impossible to teach a man something he thinks he already knows.
Can't do it.
Or else the other one, the eye is blind to what the mind will not see. Also very true.
Very true. All right. Well, I'm going to leave our listeners with that. And I know we chatted way longer than I ever thought we would. And that just can happen sometimes on here with Tea with Tiffany. I really appreciate you, Dr. Nagy, taking time out of your day, coming on. And, honestly, we don't mean to be shaming anyone or like really, being offensive. Like, I just want my show to be real, and we're open to any kind of comments, and, we're here to educate. That's my main goal, and just to have fun. So I know Dr. Nagy likes to put it how it is, but I feel I agree with all of that. And, it is what it is. We can't pretend like these things, aren't happening.
Right. Well, good. Well, thank you for having me on.
Hey, do you have a website or Facebook page you want to mention before I get off?
I don't have a website anymore, but, on Facebook, I'm just Christopher K. Nagy.
There you go. So if y'all want to follow I love his posts, and I also share them a lot on my personal page and on my Eco Health Wellness Center page. So I'm sure some people already had seen some of your posts. And you know what? I'm going to go back. I'm launching a new website.
Oh, okay.
My podcasts that we did like 4 or 5 years ago, they're going to be available on there. So I'll get them back to you so you can reshare them. It's been a while, but that was some good information. We had some good stuff back then too. All right. Well, we'll have to do this again.
All right. Very good. Good to see you.
All right. Hey, good to see you too.